Alright, hey guys. What I want to look at is this is the work that we did on Tuesday this week. So part of what you had to do is you had to take a table and you had to go in and you had to plot the points and make a scatter plot. Okay. Once we got all of our points plotted, our next thing that we needed to do is we needed to create the line of best fit. Now the line of best fit is the line that represents the data. Okay, so it's a rough estimate of the data, and the reason I want to be able to create a line of best fit is I want to be able to predict future events. So when we went through and we plotted all of our points, we were able to kind of go in and take our ruler and kind of decide, where does most of the points fit close enough to this line, and from here we were able to go through and kind of draw our line of best fit. Now, why do we need a line of best fit? Okay, the reason we need a line of best fit is so that we can use the data that we've collected to predict future outcomes. Okay, so for this, we have a Dalmatian's weight, and we were able to collect it up to 25 weeks. Well, what happens when I get to 30 weeks or 40 weeks? So we need to be able to go in and decide what that would be if we're trying to estimate what the Dalmatian's weight's going to be at those weeks. Now, when we look at this, here's my line of best fit. It's this purple line that we've drawn. I need to be able to go in and write the equation for this. So for this line, one of the first things I'm going to look at is I'm going to say, well, what's my y-intercept? And I can see that my y-intercept looks like it's b equals 0. So it's going through the origin. When I'm looking at the equation, I want to figure out what my slope is. And it looks like my slope is just 1 over 1. So my slope for this, my rise is 1, my run is 1, so my slope is 1. So if we go in and we write this line of best fit, we know it's going to be y equals 1x plus 0, or we would just say it's y equals x. Okay? So that's my line of best fit. And if I want to predict future events, I could sit here and say, well, in 30 weeks, this Dalmatian's going to be 30 pounds, okay? Because y equals x. Now, there are some limitations to this, and you have to think about what is reasonable. So if I said, what would the Dalmatian's weight be in 2,000 weeks? If I use this equation, a lot of people would come back and say, hey, the weight of the Dalmatian would be 2,000 kilograms, okay? But is that really accurate? I mean, at some point, the Dalmatian's going to stop growing, it's going to stop putting on weight, those kind of things. So in this case, you definitely need to make sure it's reasonable. So right now when we look at this, we definitely could use this line to talk about the Dalmatian growing. Okay? So that is being able to create a scatter plot, plotting the points, and also creating the line of best fit. Now everything here is considered 8th grade. This is what all the on-level kids for 8th grade would be learning right now, or pre-AP 8th grade math. But for us in algebra, this is doing it manually as far as plotting the points and drawing the line. For us, for algebra, we are going to use a calculator, and we're going to call it, we have kind of a fancy name for it, we call it linear regression. Okay? So what I need everybody to do is you're going to grab your yellow foldable, okay? And so this foldable, we're going to go through this foldable step by step to be able to learn how to use the calculator to get our line of best fit, or to be able to do a linear regression on data. Okay? So one of the things that you need to do is we are going to end up doing all of these steps with the exception of the last one. So we do not need to do step number 7. Okay? So you guys can cross that out. But we will need to be able to go in and do all of these steps. And I have them summarized up on the whiteboard in our classroom, but I definitely want us to go through this, and we're going to take it one step at a time. Alright, so everybody should have their calculator as well. So one of the first things that you always want to do with your calculator is we want to go in and do a master clear. So that would be second plus 712. So go ahead and get your calculator cleared. And we're going to kind of go through and read this example and see what they want us to do. So it says the data below displays the average tuition and fee and room and board for a public four-year college. And they've gone in and they've collected the data from 2003-2004 school year. It costed $5,900. And then they went all the way to 2013-2014, and they've collected, they found out that the cost was $8,893. Okay? So for us, we're going to use this data and perform a linear regression on it so we can come up with the line of best fit. Now again, the reason we're doing that is maybe we want to be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. So what would the cost of tuition be in the year 2022, 2023? Okay? Maybe that's what we need to figure out. But for now, let's go in, figure out this line of best fit. So we're going to go over to step 1. Okay? So step 1 says to identify the independent and dependent variables and determine how to represent them. Okay? So when we look at this, I know that the independent variable is going to be time, which is the school year, but unfortunately in the calculator I can't go in and put the school year. I can't put 2023, 2024 in a table. We need to represent the school years by numbering those years. Okay, so we're going to start with 2023-24 as 0, and we are going to then just number the rest of the years going all the way down to 10. So the dependent variable for us, y, is going to be the cost. Okay, so as we go through and we're putting our information in, we will put this in our y, then we'll put this in for x. Okay, so now we've identified independent and dependent variables. So now we're going to slide over to step number 2. And step number 2, it says enter the data into list 1 and list 2. Okay? So the way we're going to do that is they want us to go to stat edit. Okay? And stat edit is on your calculator, and so here's my stat button. And I kind of say it's next to these toggle buttons, which let me go left and right and up and down. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose stat, and it gives you this little window, same thing on your foldable, that says edit. Okay? And you want to go in and we want to hit the enter button and choose edit. Now L1 is going to represent our x coordinates, L2 is going to represent our y coordinates. So L1 is going to be the years, and L2 is going to be the cost of those years. So the way we enter the data is we're going to enter all of our x coordinates first, and then we'll go back in and enter all of our y coordinates. So you're going to go back to your table over here, and remember we're using 0 through 10 for x. So you're going to put in 0, enter, 1, enter, 2, enter. And you're just going to do this all the way down until you get to 10. So you just keep entering, and then I'll get 10, and I'll hit enter. So stop when you get there. Now make sure you toggle back up, and make sure you put in the 0. Okay? Because I don't want you to start counting it off at 1, count off at 0, and you're counting all the way up to 10. Okay? Now, when we go back up here, we're going to toggle to the right to get to L2, and then now we're going to put in all of the costs. Okay, so we're going to start out with 5,900, and the only thing I can say is be careful. This is actually a comma in between the 5 and the 9. When we put in our information for the y, for L2, we are not putting in a comma, we're not putting in a decimal, it's strictly 5900. Okay? And then you'll hit enter, and we're going to do that for all of the values. Okay? All right, now I'm down here on number 4, on so 6943. All right, so I have all of the my data entered for L1 and L2, and you guys should be doing this the same way I'm doing it right now. So if you need to pause the video for you guys to catch up, once you finish, here are some common errors that people will do. Is if you look here underneath 10, some people might have typed in 11, or they might have typed in something in for L2, but they don't have something for L1. So, for example, if I have 11 over here, and I put that in, you notice I don't have any data typed in for L2, and this will give you an error in the calculator. So if you've done this, if you want to clear out this 11, you just have to highlight on the 11, like I am, and hit delete, and it'll take it out. Okay? So double check you have something entered for L1, you have a variable entered for L2. You have your X and your Y coordinate plugged in. So you have to make sure everything has a partner. If I have an x coordinate, I have to have a y coordinate. If for some reason you type in something else, you type in that 11 by accident, and then you don't put in something for y, you will get an error message later. Okay? Alright, so this is how you just delete it out by hitting the delete button. Alright, now that we've done step 2, we've got all of our data in. We're going to slide over to the right, and we're looking at our step 3. Now, step 3 in the calculator is just like for the Dalmatian's weight and everything, we took all of these points and we went in and we did a scatter plot. Well, the calculator can make the scatter plot for us, and so we're going to go in and turn that on. Now, the way we do that is it says go to stat plot by pressing the second function and y equals. Okay, so if you look here, I have the word stat plot is above y equals, and the only way to get to it is I've got to hit second function, and you'll notice I've got the arrow up here by the battery, and we'll hit y equals, which is our stat plot. And hopefully what you'll notice is the stat plot has the word off on it. Okay, so right now it won't graph a scatter plot for me, but I need to turn this on. So you're going to hit enter, and if you notice, I have a black box around the word off, which means it's off, and I have my other black boxes on the word on, and it's flashing. Okay, so we need to hit enter to make sure that it's turned on. Okay, and once we have it, now we can hit graph. And unfortunately, when I hit graph, there's nothing there. So the way we can see our graph is the calculator has a nice feature called zoom, and it's zoom 9. And so when you hit zoom and you go down to 9, then it's going to bring up just the points that we put into L1 and L2, and it's kind of graphed it for us. So now it's made this scatter plot for us. So take your time. If you have any errors where you don't see it, you can kind of pause the video, make sure you go back in and double check your stat plot. If I hit second function stat plot, it's going to be turned on. If you have an error where the graph is not coming up, then more than likely you can go back into your stat edit for L1 and L2. And I'm going to go ahead and put in an error just so you guys can see what it looks like. If I put in 11 and hit enter, and I go back and try to graph this, I'm going to get an error that says dimension mismatch, and it has 1 to quit. If you get this error and you're trying to look at your scatter plot, more than likely you go back into stat. You got to quit it first. You're going to go back into stat, go back into edit, and more than likely you guys have keyed in a variable for either your x or your y, but you don't have a corresponding point for it. You don't have the other. So to get rid of this, you definitely need to delete that, and now we can go back and hit graph, and it should graph it for you. Again, if you don't see this, if you don't get the error and you don't see it, more than likely you just need to hit zoom 9, and it should zoom in on your points for you. Alright, so that is our step number 3. Now we want the calculator to be able to go in and actually do this linear regression. We want it to draw this line of best fit for us. So we're going to take our calculator, let's slide over here, and we're going to look at step 4. Now step 4 says we need to turn on the diagnostic. So we need to have the calculator turn on the programming that'll create the line of best fit for us. And the way we do that is we need to go to the catalog, which is above 0. So we're going to do second function 0. And this is, the nice thing is it's in alphabetical order for us. And if you notice, you have a little A value next to your battery. And that means your calculator is in alpha mode right now. So if it's in alpha mode, I can either hit the toggle button and start toggling down until I get to the word diagnostic on, or I can hit the green. You'll see right here I have this green letter D, which that's my alpha, and I can hit that and it'll take me down to the D's. And then from here I can just scroll down, and I want to make sure I'm getting down to diagnostic on. Okay, if you go too far, you'll see you have a diagnostic off, a diagnostic on. You want the diagnostic on. Now, once you hit enter, it'll bring it up. But right now, we still haven't turned it on. We need to hit enter one more time so we see this word done there. And now you'll see this word done. So we have turned on the diagnostic, so now that we can do this linear regression. Okay, so that was step number 4, was just getting your diagnostic turned on. Okay, so you could go back and hit the graph, and you'll see your graph, but we need to do the diagnostic we need to now do this linear regression. Okay, so we're going to scoot over to step number 5, and there's quite a few steps here for number 5, so we just need to kind of go through them and take them one by one. So the first thing we need to do is now we need to go back to the stat button. So you're going to hit your stat button, and we're going to toggle over to calculate, because we want the calculator to calculate this linear regression for us. So once I toggle over to calculate, remember use the toggle button, we want to do linear regression. And if we look at all of our choices here, we have a lot of different types of regressions we can do, but for right now we are just working on linear regression, and you'll notice it's in the form of y equals mx plus b, where a is going to be my slope, b is going to be my y-intercept. So we're going to choose 4, and it's taking us inside this linear regression. Okay. Now, it's already set up for my x variable to be L1, my y list be L2, and then we can skip this frequency list. We don't need to worry about that. But what we do want to do is we want to go down to store regression equation. That's what this REG-EQ stands for, regression equation. And we want to store this linear regression equation that the calculator makes for us, and we're actually going to put it into our y1. Okay, and the way we do that, and this is where it can get a little kind of complicated, but we got to take our time. Okay, you're going to come down here to this word vars. Okay, you'll hit vars. You're going to toggle over to y vars, and it's already highlighted on the word function. So you're just going to hit enter, and we're highlighting y1. This is where we want to store this equation, so it's already highlighted on it. So you're going to hit enter again, and the nice thing is it puts y1 next to this regression equation 1. So this is where we're going to store the equation at. Now once I have it there, we can toggle down to calculate, and we can hit enter. Okay. And now what you're going to notice is you should have y equals ax plus b. If you notice, my a value is 315, so this is my slope of this line. My b value is my y-intercept, which is 5,834. And you can ignore r squared. R squared does not mean anything for us in Algebra 1. We do not need to worry about it. But we do need to worry about the r value. This r value has a special name, which is called the correlation coefficient. And it tells us how good our line of best fit is for this equation or this set of data. Okay? And in this case, you want a number that's close to either a positive 1 or close to a negative 1. That means you'll have a really good, you'll be able to use that equation to predict future events, and you would be able to trust it. So in this case, this regression equation has an r value, and I'd probably just round it to 2 decimal places, has an r value of 0.99, which is really good. And what you're going to notice is now that I can see this, I can go in and actually hit graph, and that's actually our step number 6, is we can go in and hit graph, and what you're going to see is all the data points and this line going up here. And that regression number that we got, or the correlation coefficient, the r value, that tells us that all of our data points are going to be really close to the line. Okay, it's a good line of best fit. So we'll be able to predict future events. Okay. All right. Now that I've got this, we've got the line of best fit. I can go in and I can predict future items, and we can go in and practice other tables. Okay. So what you're going to have for me is the next thing you're going to do after we've done all these steps. You guys are going to have practice problems. Okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like there's 6 problems to go in and do. Okay. And it's the same setup. You're going to take your table, put them into your L1 and L2. You're going to write your equation down, and then you're going to go in and use your prediction for like what the weight would be after 8 weeks. So that's this problem number 1. Okay. Now this video is going to be stored in our Canvas classroom. So if you're in the classroom today and you're having a hard time with it, then you can go back in and watch different parts of it so that you can see that. Okay.